Hello, everybody, and welcome to this amazing free two-part webinar series that we have this week for you called Regenerative High Polyphenol Olive Oil. Really excited to welcome everybody in today. And if you could let us know in the chat where you're joining from, we will be interacting with you in the chat. You should be able to find that on the bottom of your screen. Just let us know where you're joining from. We'll give you a few more minutes for everybody to get in before we get started. I see two people from Slovenia there.
Isn't it great to be back, Luke? It seems ages ago since we had our last webinar. So it's great to be back here, and what a great two-parter we've got coming up this week with high polyphenol oils. So really looking forward to this one, Luke.
Me too, Nick. It's great. I know we've both seen the product, and I've certainly used it and really love it and have enjoyed several health benefits myself. Today's webinar is actually all about the health benefits, and the second webinar in the series is all about the regenerative techniques behind it. So, yeah, really excited to be here, Nick. I think we should probably start just by introducing ourselves as the two hosts today, Nick and myself. So my name is Luke Luca, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Soil Food Web School. Nick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. So I'm a farmer in the UK, and also for the last year or so been involved with the Soil Food Web. I'm a mentor. I've got my own consultancy business called Wild Soils. And sat to my left, I'm so lucky to have this amazing young lady with me. So Isadora, introduce yourself, please.
Well, thank you so much for the young lady. Yes, I'm Isadora. I'm a soil consultant. I also have my own practice in Spain. I also work for the Soil Food Web. I'm a mentor, researcher sometimes, microbe enthusiast. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Isadora. And Nicolas, please introduce yourself. You're on mute at the moment, just to let you know.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicolas. I'm an environmental engineer. I specialize in regenerative agriculture in dry environments. I've been living in Cyprus for 13 years now, and I've been working with olive in very, very dry conditions. And I'm going to be presenting today the oil that we managed to create in these tough conditions.
Great. Thank you, Nicolas. And Tassos, please introduce yourself.
Good afternoon or good evening, or wherever you might be. Tassos Kyriakides. I am from Cyprus, but I've been in the US for over 30 years. I'm a faculty at the Yale School of Public Health, and I'll be talking more on the health benefits following Nicolas, who I met here in Cyprus, actually working on olive oil, a couple of olive oil products together. Thank you.
Thanks, Tassos. Nick, I just want to rewind a couple of slides just for those latecomers and anybody joining us on YouTube. Just to let you know, this is a two-part webinar series, everybody. If you're joining us from YouTube, you can put your questions in the live chat. There's also a link in the live chat if you want to come and join us on our platform here and register for both webinars. Then you'll get reminder emails for webinar 2, and you'll get links to the replay as well. But if you're joining us from YouTube and you just want to ask some questions, please fire them into the live chat. Yeah. If you're on our platform today on the Zoom call, on the Zoom webinar, then please use the chat button in the bottom of your screens. As I said earlier, a bit rushed. Today's webinar is all about the health benefits of polyphenols. That's why Tassos is here. On the 5th of the month, we will be focusing in on you can see it on the screen there, how regenerative agriculture helped create the world's most powerful or potent olive oil, which we're really excited about. Nicolas is a really accomplished regenerative practitioner, and he'll be telling us all about his secrets, all of them, right, Nick? On the 5th of July. You're not going to.
Well, Luke, I heard Nicolas was going to tell us everything. That's why I'm going to come in.
When it comes to the fields, I will tell everything. for sure. The extraction, I'm gonna keep some secrets, but in the field, yes, I share everything.
Well, I'm sure your wisdom, Nicolas, will in webinar 2 will be very insightful, and I'm sure there's a load of us that can't wait for that one.
Definitely, definitely. So that's what we've got lined up for you. We've introduced everyone. I think we've given everyone enough time to join now. So why don't we dive in? Nick, do you want to take us through the instructions real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. As ever, guys, we're going to mute you all just so that the speakers get a great opportunity to give their presentations. As Lucas said a couple of times now, please put your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get to those at the end. We want you to enjoy this, so this is a great opportunity for you to with the time we have to really take on board these presentations and get some real thoughtful questions going, guys. Please. Nicolas is gonna start his presentation, and then we've got Tassos, who will then continue his. We'll have a little short break, and then we'll go straight into Q&A.
Nick,
So
could you just tell us what Tassos is going to be presenting on today? Because I can't pronounce that word there.
Well, I thought that would be you, Luke.
Oh,
I thought you'd rehearse that. I was told you rehearsed that.
I'm going to have a go at it, but
Go on.
Tassos, can you help us out? Is it triacylglycerols?
Triacylglycerols.
Okay, well,
That's exactly what I was going to say, but I wanted you to have a go first, Luke.
thanks, Nick. I appreciate it, mate.
Right, after that one, thanks for chucking me under the bus. Appreciate that.
I tried.
Nicolas, over to you. If you'd like to start, that'd be fantastic, please.
Yeah, I'm going to start sharing my screen. Is it all good?
Yep, away you go, Nick. We can see it.
All right. So I started a small teaser first for next webinar. It's going to be on the 5th of July. And in that webinar, I will share absolutely everything when it comes to growing tree resilience and drought resilience. And by doing so, doing high quality product. So I'm trying to, okay, there we go. So I call it the forgotten frontier because my work here started in the buffer zone in Cyprus, and soil biology is a frontier in science. When I started 20 years ago, we knew very little on soil biology. And I think if we draw the parallel to human microbiology and human microbiome in the gut, in the brain, on the skin, etc., it is still a frontier. We started doing a nomenclature of soil biology in 2012, so that's just putting the names on the microbes. We still don't know many things when it comes to soil biology, but what we know is that the future lies under our feet. It is through soil that we can draw carbon. It is through soil that we can create drought resilience. And it is through soil that we can create nutritious, high nutrition product and food. Right. So on the next webinar, I will tell our story, how we started 13 years ago in the buffer zone here in Cyprus. We were the first one to farm this piece of land since the invasion in 1974. We came just after the mines were removed, one of the driest area of the island, and no access to water. So I will explain how we planted the rain first, how we design around water first, and then how we started building soil. The goal was for our trees to survive. It was not, we were not trying to make high phenolic olive oil. That was kind of a happy accident. And then that's how we made the connection between the symbiotic relationships between microbes and trees that increased the phenolic compound. It was not only the stress, it was not only the water, it was the connection between microbes and trees. And we duplicated that along on many farms now. And that will be the webinar. I will explain all the tricks and everything that we did. So now I'm gonna go into what we do now. We are working now with 5 different farms all around the island of Cyprus, and we're giving incentives to farmers to apply our practices. So our practices will be explained in the webinar too, but beyond growing soil, because I always say we grow soil, we do not grow trees, the tree grows themselves. We go far beyond that. We have a zero kill policy. We do not use pesticides, organic or whatever. We are trying to increase biodiversity in order to create productive agro ecosystem. And it's working very well. And to give an incentive to farmers, we are doing some kind of private co-op where we're purchasing the olives at twice the market value. So the farmers, the angle on the farmers is always how much we're paying for the olives, which is fair enough. They need to feed their families. So what we're trying to do is to unlock olive oil potential. So the health benefits of olive oil, and I'm sure Tassos will explain that better than me, are mostly related to the polyphenol content. There's all other bioactive compounds as well, but the phenols are really the key to the health benefits. The thing that most people don't know, especially in the US, is you have different grades of olive oil. So there's only really 2 grades that are mechanically extracted. That means we are just taking olives and then we're extracting the juice mechanically without any adjuvant. It is extra virgin, which is the gold standard, and then virgin olive oil. Everything below that, everything that is called olive oil or pure olive oil or anything else but extra virgin or virgin is extracted with solvent. And then the health benefits then are completely lost, and you can even have residue, and often you have residue of hexane, which is a chemical, and this residue you will find in pretty much every single seed oil on the market. It doesn't appear in the ingredient list because it's an auxiliary to making it. So any seed oil or any olive oil which is not extra virgin or virgin olive oil will have this chemical in it. So not only they don't have much nutritional value, but they also have a high level of hexane. For seed oil, if they are organic, normally you don't have hexane. So what we're trying to do is really come back to the roots of what olive oil used to be for thousands of years, a food and a medicine. So if you buy extra virgin or virgin olive oil on the supermarket, the average polyphenol is 50 milligrams per liter, per kilo of olive oil, which is quite low. What we are achieving here, we went all the way to 5,000 milligrams. That's the world record. But now we are standardizing it around 1,600 milligrams per liter. And that's already quite strong. It is one of the strongest on the market. And I will explain how we make sure that we deliver that every day and all year long. So how we achieve that, that's what we'll explain in the second seminar, is through soil biology, through regenerative agriculture. So when a tree has a happy root microbiome and is just like us, you have better access to the nutrition in the soil. You are unlocking nutrients in the soil. An example here in Cyprus, we have a lot of minerals in our soil because some part of the island are based on volcanic soil, upper pillow lava. But those nutrients, they're not in a chemical form which is accessible to the tree. what microbes will do is they will mine those minerals and turn them into a form which is accessible for the tree. So you're unlocking all the aisles of the supermarket of the soil when you work with soil biology. And when you do that, when you have a good nutrition for the tree, then you have a healthy tree and therefore a high polyphenol content. The polyphenol content is a little bit like the immune system of the tree. So the way we do it, we obviously do not till. If you've been following the soil food web, you know that's one of the first thing that we stop doing. We do not disturb the soil food web in the soil. We are doing some inoculation with some microbes that we're doing through compost. We do not fertilize the trees with compost. We are using it as inoculation. I will explain in webinar 2 why we're not doing this for olives. Olives is a bit tricky. It's not like an annual crop. It's a tree that doesn't want too much nitrogen. So when you do compost, it's very tricky to assess how much nitrogen you're giving, especially over time. So we are using soil microbiology to inoculate those trees. All our operations are carbon negative. Olive cultivation is generally carbon negative. On average, an olive tree will help take 10 kilos of carbon per liter of olive oil. We go up to 16 kilos. And with our new packaging system, we are going to measure that very soon, and we're going to go much, much higher than that. And that includes the entire operation from the cultivation to the harvest to the distribution until it reaches your door. Olive tree is one of the most cultivated tree in the world. It's focusing mostly on the Mediterranean basin. There's millions of people living, millions of families living from olive cultivation. Now it's increasing all over the world, especially in South America, in Australia, etc. We do sell more olive than we produce, so there's a bit of fraud out there. But if you are looking for quality extra virgin, you should be okay on that. So we are doing everything we can to protect those polyphenols, and we are going very, very far into our nerdy way to protect all this polyphenol, and that starts obviously in the cultivation, but also at the harvest. Everything is hand harvested, and we have a fridge truck that is parked under the olive trees. And as we harvest, the olives are refrigerated straight away in order to stop any oxidation, any enzymatic degradation. So when they arrive to the mill, a few hours after, we mill very, very quickly as well. They are just as we took them from the tree. And that's very important to preserve all the polyphenol and have zero degradation. Milling is our own technique. That's the one I'm not gonna share. But what I can share there is something quite special when it comes to olive oil. So when the olives are brought to the mill, they are crushed, mechanically crushed. And then they go into a phase that we call the malaxation phase. So that paste of crushed olive goes through malaxation. So it's a big thing that turns the paste for a certain amount of time. And during this malaxation, some magic happens. There is an enzymatic activity, and is the one that we want. And some polyphenol will be transformed into other polyphenol. And you're going to hear a lot, I think, in Tassos' presentation about a polyphenol called oleocanthal. Oleocanthal is a polyphenol that burns your throat. So if you ever tried a really good fresh olive oil, it will have burned your throat a little bit or a lot in a case of our olive oil, and this is oleocanthal. And so Tassos will explain why it's a very, very, very powerful medicine, basically. And so we have mastered this enzymatic activity, and that's why our olive oil has close to 1,500 milligrams of oleocanthal per liter. And that's extremely, extremely high. That's over 100 times the average of olive oil. And that oleocanthal, maybe Tassos will tell you, but sells for $50 per milligram. So our liter of olive oil has 22K worth of oleocanthal in it. I'll let Tassos explain all the health benefits of oleocanthal.
That was 22K, 22,000 euros of worth of oleocanthal.
Per liter, yeah. So each teaspoon is about 380 euros or dollars per worth of oleocanthal. So what we do is, because we do everything, right. We follow every step. We do not cut any corner, and we are fully transparent about it. So every batch is tested, and we're using proper analysis method, which is LSMSMS. We're doing at the University of Cordoba. So we have a full analysis of the polyphenol content. We are also testing all sorts of other things like vitamin E, tocopherols, squalene, oleic acid, etc., etc. And we also test for pesticide residues and microplastics. Unfortunately, there's a lot of microplastic in olive oil, and there's a recent study from Italy, and every single olive oil they tested had microplastic in it. That comes, and it was not related to the packaging, so it comes mostly from the extraction in mills, the piping, the net used for the harvest, etc., etc. So we make sure that the oil is very potent, but also pure of any pollutant. We share all our analysis. We have a full transparency on that. And the method of analysis is very important because here in Europe, the EFSA, so the European Food and Safety Agency, has an official health claim. Tassos will mention it later. So it's very important that we have the right method of analysis. And there's a few non-accredited method of analysis out there, especially from Greece, that tends to overestimate polyphenol content. So if you are ever looking for high phenolic olive oil, make sure the method of analysis is accredited by the EFSA. Otherwise, it's basically fraud. So what we wanted to do is to deliver those polyphenols as a consistent dose. And that's very tricky if you use bottles. If you use bottle and they are stored at room temperature, before you open the bottle, you will lose half the polyphenol over half the shelf life of the olive oil. So if a producer takes a reading of polyphenol and it's 500 milligrams per liter, less than a few months after, you're probably going to have half of that. And then when you open the bottle, and if you take high phenolic olive oil, you take a very small quantity of it. By the time you finish that bottle, you have very, very little polyphenol left because they do oxidize. So any contact with oxygen will drop those polyphenols. They're very sensitive. So what we wanted to do, and it was a main problem that was put to us by athletes. So we have professional athletes and professional football players that are using our olive oil, and their doctors and nutritionists told us, yeah, it's very good and stuff, but we want to know the amount that we're giving, and we want to make sure it's always the same. So what we decided, we wanted to go for monodose and cold chain. So we're keeping all the oil in the fridge. So by keeping it under 4 degrees Celsius, we can keep the polyphenol for 3 years at the same levels. So we have a complete cold chain, and where all the storage is refrigerated. But when we look at packaging for monodose, it was either aluminum or plastic or glass small bottles, and we do everything right in the fields to be regenerative and carbon negative. There was no way we were going to use plastic or aluminum, even glass. We wanted to have the minimum environmental impact, and that's how we found these guys in the UK that are working with seaweed. And now we have, after a lot of tests and trial and error, we have developed with these guys a seaweed edible monodose package. So you can actually eat it. We have a secondary packaging around it, which is also a compostable seaweed film. So there's zero contact with oxygen. And we keep it in the fridge, and then we ship it every month to the consumer. So when you take a dose, if you take it just after harvest or a year after, it's the exact same potency. And that was very important for us. And seaweed is pretty cool because it takes carbon 20 times faster than trees. And when you grow seaweed, you bring oxygen in the sea. You are increasing marine biodiversity. So it really fits with what we're doing. So it's really regenerative agriculture meets regenerative oceans. And there's a great future, I believe, in seaweed-based packaging. It's not like those land-based bioplastics. You can see they call it PLA. So that's made with corn or sugarcane. And those, although they say compostable, you won't be able to compost them unless you have an industrial composting system. And they do leave residue, and they take land. They take land that should be used for crops, really, rather than packaging. So seaweed is really the best solution. It took us a very long time to work it out, but now it's there. We are launching for next harvest. It's packaged in a factory that does pharmaceutical as well, so it's completely clean, all under nitrogen the entire time, no oxidation, and it's kept cold. So there's really a link between soil and health, and there's a link between the soil microbiome and the human microbiome. And I don't really have time now to go through the whole thing, but if you have been following the soil food web, maybe you know that if you're a kid and play in a healthy soil, you will improve your microbiome and therefore your immunity and your metabolism. The polyphenol in olive oil have a strong impact on microbiome, but I'm sure Tassos will cover that later. So by finally bringing value to the price of olives, we are managing to revive all groves. You have to understand that most of the olive oil cultivation, the one that are from big brands, is done in high density farming. So it's highly mechanized. The trees are grown 30 centimeters apart, and everything is mechanized, the harvest and things. So the traditional olive grove where the tree density is low, that allows for higher biodiversity, is being slowly abandoned. But because we are doing a product that has a higher value and we can actually pay the farmer much more money for the olives, we are reviving now old groves. And when we do so, we have carbon negative, drought resilient systems, and you can have other crops with these groves as well. You have a grazing, you have different cover crops, and you have a much higher biodiversity and carbon sequestration. So this I covered it a little bit before. What we do is that we ship monthly. So we keep it refrigerated and then we ship monthly. So people get 30 doses, they can keep them in the fridge, and then they can take it every day. Usually you take it raw in the morning, but you can also just drop it in a smoothie, and that will also help the bioavailability of all the vitamins that you put in your smoothie from fruits or veggies or whatever you put in your smoothie. The way I do it also is I put in my coffee. The pod melts in coffee, and I get the antioxidant from coffee, and most importantly for me, because I use a lot of caffeine, it actually eases the jitters. It slows down the caffeine intake. So monthly daily dose, and it was very important for us to keep the potency for the professional athletes, but also for the other people that are used the anti-inflammatory effects of it. We have an athlete which has multiple sclerosis that takes it every day. We have people with actual inflammation condition. So by doing that, it's hard. It's a lot of work. It's not the easy way to make olive oil, definitely not. But by doing that, we're really, really helping people. And we have 100% returning customers. And that was me.
Thanks
you.
for this.
Yeah.
That was great. Just a quick question in the chat from somebody. Do you ship to Canada?
Yeah, we do. We take the shipping on us for most countries. The US is shipping on us. Canada, we have to add a little bit more. I don't have the number on this, but on our website you can find. Canada actually has a much higher tariff than the US, so we have taxes to pay on that. So yeah, we ship worldwide basically. We have clients in the US, in Canada, pretty much all South America, Japan, Asia. We do not do India or China. That's the only two countries because taxes and customs are just too difficult for those two countries. For a small operation, we are a very small operation, right? We produce once a year, a very small amount. We have very limited. We actually work mostly on pre-subscription. So people subscribe before the harvest to secure their spot. But we have clients pretty much everywhere. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm just about to pop a link in the chat there that everyone can use to go directly to your website.
Well, I don't know about you, Luke, but I'm subscribed, so I can't wait, Nicolas, until I get my first dose coming through in when? October, November?
We are basically harvesting in September, which is very, very early. This is another thing that Iman mentioned, but we need way more olives to make that olive oil, right? We're harvesting them way before maturity. So I need close to 15 kilos for a liter of olives, where typically it can go down to 4 or 5 kilos normally, or even less.
Okay.
I'm talking quality olive oil, right? So we are harvesting in September. Then we have all the filtration process. Then we have the bottling, the capsule process, the pod process. So we're hoping that by early November we'll be ready. We told everyone November just so we're safe. Maybe, hopefully, we'll be able to do it before, but we need a slot at the factory to be able to do it. But we say November just to be safe. Yeah.
Well, I should look forward to receiving mine mid-October.
I'm really
All
looking
right,
forward
I put you on priority. Right?
Thank you, Nicolas. And
Right.
I know the certainly Isadora, myself, and Luke. We had the privilege of going round and having a look at your operation. It's so impressive, Nicolas. So and tasting your oils as well. So thank you very much indeed. I'm sure we'll have some more questions for you in the Q&A. But as I'm the timekeeper, I'm afraid it's my job to move on. So Tassos, are you ready to present? You're on mute at the moment. Well done. You come off mute.
I'm ready.
I'll move you on to your first slide, and then I will leave it to you to move your slide on. Thank you very much indeed, Tassos.
Thanks, Nick. And again, thank you for hosting me. I met Nicolas here in Cyprus, actually. And I can tell you, after all these years, he has not yet revealed some of his secrets, working on it. But it was great to when he reached out to do this. And a lot of the things you'll hear, what he mentioned, they're going to come back here. So I wanted to do some justice to my initial first education degree I got by throwing a lot of chemistry and biochemistry in it, hence the title Triacyl Glycerols to Human and Planetary Health and the Story of Olive Oil. And I'll take sort of a different perspective and a couple, no conflicts of interest, but the other disclaimer I ignored to put here is that what you'll see, what I'll talk about is a summary, a brief summary of all the evidence that's been accumulating on the benefits of olive oil the last close to 7 decades now. Why are we here and why are we talking about this and what Nicolas mentioned before and the kind of things that are to me even more exciting what is down the road. I mean, for those of you, hopefully most of you have seen what the tree looks like, and these trees can be anywhere from 5-6 years old when they start giving fruit, as Nicolas can tell you. But you can see trees 3, 4, 5, 1,000 years old, 2,000-year-old trees still producing. So this is a tree that's been around for a while, giving and producing olives and olive oil and the other good things that come with the tree. So just a couple of quick notes on the history. It's a kind of an interesting perspective to think about that there's some evidence that probably 8,000 years ago olive oil was around. And the evidence of production for the first time dates back to 1500 or so BC. And there's some myth and some history behind it. Maybe the Trojan War was not fought for Helen, even though, a good reason probably, or a good excuse, or whatever you want to call it, depending on what side you're on. But maybe it was to control the olive oil trade routes of the time. So, you can have your imagination run as wild as you want, but people have posited that maybe that was the real reason, and then we had to create this myth, interesting story, love story, of course ending in a war. But at the same time, this sort of makes sense. This tree is around in this part of the world, and that's where this happened, and maybe there was something there. But going back to the tree itself and some of the things that Nicolas mentioned, the olive oil that we're talking about comes from a fruit. The olive is a fruit, and you think about olive oil in a very simple way. It's a fruit juice, as Nicolas describes, mechanically extracted from this fruit that you harvest. And the content primarily of olive oil is these monounsaturated free fatty acids, what we call MUFAs, and those are the good kinds of fats, unlike the polyunsaturated fats that appear in other seed oils and butter and margarine and other places, obviously. High content in vitamin E, Nicolas also alluded to that. And the interesting and more exciting and health impactful content is the phenols, the polyphenols. So primarily, and hence the title, about close to almost 100% is this compound we call triacyl glycerols. And it has a chemical structure that's very distinct, and that's what it's made of. And then there's some free fatty acids, mono and di, 1 or 2 glycerols. That's what that means. But you can see it's made up of all these very interesting chemicals, if you will, but that make what we consume as olive oil, whether extra virgin or virgin olive oil, and in different compositions, obviously, depending on how it's extracted, depending on the variety, on the cultivar of the tree. There's tons of different varieties of olives out there, not all producing olive oil of quality, or olive oil, some of them are used just for table olives, for example. But at the end of the day, the sort of the composition in different proportions is this here that we show in this slide. Couple of slides here again here's the close to 70 to 75%, even some cases approaching to 80%, is made of this oleic acid. And that's the structure of oleic acid on the top. For those of you who are interested in sort of the chemical composition, you can see some subtle differences in the structure, the bonds here between oleic, linoleic, and linolenic acid. And all these are there, but close to 70, I would say on average 70% of the olive oils are made of oleic acid, with the composition of the others varying. And this, Nicolas alluded to that, one of the most famous, if you will, phenols in olive oil is oleocanthal, which comes from the Greek word for oleo, for olive. Canth is the sting. What Nicolas said, when you take olive oil that has high oleocanthal, it will burn your throat. Nothing bad's going to happen, but it will sting. Hence the word oleocanthal. And this is one of the first phenols that's been shown in some cell work in cancer cells to show that it can kill cancer cells in cultures and all that. And I'll show some studies that were done in sort of different models to show that this works. And it's a major anti-inflammatory. And the guy who first coined this or found this is Gary Beauchamp, who's at the Monell Institute down in Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. And as a chemist, he identified this through olive oil on a conference that he was attending in Italy. And then he came back to his lab and said, there's got to be this thing tastes like the compound I'm familiar with in ibuprofen, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. And lo and behold, long story short, he found that the naturally occurring equivalent of what is found in a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, whether it's ibuprofen panel or whatever you call it, is this oleocanthal thing. And if you look at the Google searches from when he published that paper, they went skyrocket for people looking at this compound. Interesting story when he tells it at various events I shared presence with him. And I'll mention a few more of these polyphenols because they are really interesting and they captured the attention through research that's been shown. Squalene is another, at least in cultures and some preliminary models in animals and some humans, that there might be a tumor inhibitor capacity of these squalene. And if you actually the other day I was looking at some cosmetic lines, and now they're starting to put squalene in cosmetic lines because it's a UV protector. It prevents sun rays coming through your skin. And you can see 4.5% it says squalene in this cream. Oleaphen is another one, again associated with preventing invasion of cancer cells, and actually showing that in some cultures that it helped regress. So not only prevents the invasion, but you have a cancer cell colony might help regress that so it doesn't spread. And the other one that's also sort of in the research world, oleacin is another one of these polyphenols. Now, I mentioned them individually, but I'm sure that there's a lot of synergy between them depending on how their bioavailability, but also on the amount and the composition of the oils, which to me is more fascinating than just isolating one individual one. It's in synergy with something else. It's very fascinating to think what the potential is if we, like Nicolas said, oleocanthal is doing this by itself, but then imagine if you have the synergy, what the health benefit might be. So the other, again, very famous polyphenol is what we know is hydroxytyrosol, which is associated with the health claim, and I'll talk about it a little bit later, that the European Food Safety Authority has given to olive oil if an oil contains a certain amount of this phenol and its derivatives. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on. So again, I said at the beginning, this is a brief overview. This is an accumulation of over 100 published papers in scientific peer-reviewed journals that support these claims, again, dating back the late 50s onto even yesterday. And if you just for fun, if you put in your Google search olive oil or health or whatever, every day you'll get 10-15 hits of something that has to do with olive oil. So this literature is growing on Google Scholar, I should say. It grows exponentially, and there's more to come, building on what we know already. So just to give you, to me, in looking and thinking about this, the sort of the gate was opened with the study by Ansel Keys, a a US physiologist actually who was interested in looking at the diet and health of individuals in 7 countries, the very famous 7-country study, which basically he started to look at why are people having different health outcomes depending on where they are, what they eat. And this slide here, back in the day when we used to draw slides by hand pretty much, he plotted 2 pieces of data. He said, okay, here's the 7 countries that I'm looking at. And one of them was Crete, and you can see the rest there. And he plotted on the vertical axis the 10-year mortality from coronary heart disease, basically, per 10,000 men. Back in the day, in studies, they only studied men, unfortunately. But on the horizontal axis, he said, okay, let me see what percentage of these people's diet calories come from fats. So the big paradox was, if you look at Crete, it's sitting close to 0. So cardiovascular mortality in these people in Crete was almost 0 per year. As opposed to East Finland, same proportion of calories from fat, 40% in Crete, 40% in their diet in East Finland. He said, this is strange. Why is it that same amount of fats, calories coming from fat in the 2 places, but yet this amazingly different incidence of mortality? So he thought, okay, let me think about that. What do they eat? And lo and behold, the calories from fat consuming in Crete was coming from olive oil, as opposed to East Finland coming from other fats. So that to me opened the gate to, why is that happening? What is it about olive oil that is helping all this? People are consuming it. They don't, they're just, that's part of their life. So I'll try in the next few slides to go through some evidence that's been accumulated, again, starting the heart disease and other related conditions, moving on to some evidence from cancer, cognitive neurological conditions, which, now we're able to have people live much longer. Well, what good is it if I can live longer, but if cognitively my brain health is not where it should be, and I'm not enjoying, it's not just being alive, it's quality of life too. Therefore, you need to think about that. I'll show some evidence in the diabetes and endocrine metabolic syndrome conditions. And last but not least, what Nicolas mentioned, the microbiome, which I think is the next frontier. Nicolas used that in his slide. My next frontier in this is microbiome, because we know that a lot of the responses, immune responses and other front that the body is putting out against its defense is coming through the microbiome. So what is the impact of olive oil on the microbiome? Cardiovascular disease, again, one of the first areas that people looked at. And when you look at, as I mentioned before, we have these monounsaturated free fatty acids in olive oil and the polyphenols. So we talked about oleocanthal, anti-inflammatory. We know that heart disease is the end result of inflammation. If you think of your blood vessels, they're inflamed, and therefore that leads to like negative downstream effects of what's going to happen next. So now you have a product, you have a natural product that now has anti-inflammatory capacity through those polyphenols. It has antioxidant capacities. So there's got to be something that it's doing to prevent that, to slow down that inflammation. And numerous studies have shown that. Again, this is quick summary of over 120 plus that we used over time for various things, to whether it's working with agencies here in the United States, where they want to show that whether it's the FDA or the USDA, that this product needs to be protected and promoted as part of a healthy diet. And here's the evidence. Here's like 10 pages of evidence. So you cannot, it's not, somebody made a claim and this is what it is. So this goes back to a lot of published papers. If anybody's interested, I can share the list that I keep every day. I have to update it because there's something coming out. So if we think of the inflammatory process, what is it? It's a response to something, an assault on your body, but it's also a marker at the level of the disease. The more inflammation you have, probably some markers will show that your disease is more progressed. So we know, again, we look at oleic acid, it's been shown that it has an impact and reduces markers like C-reactive protein. So if you look at people who take oleic acid through olive oil, their C-reactive protein has been shown to sustainably go down, and therefore, if you have something that reduces a marker, it means that it's doing something on the inflammation that's causing the marker. And it's been shown that these polyphenols are anti-inflammatory. We talked again about oleocanthal. And I mentioned the story about the natural equivalent to ibuprofen. But let me note here that if you drink a shot of olive oil, it's not going to get your headache away, or we're thinking of long term. This is something that if you take it consistently, consume this consistently, it will help keep these things in check and reduce your inflammation. The other part that's involved in cardiovascular disease and coronary heart disease is this oxidative process. And we know that if you take your bad cholesterol, the low density lipoprotein, if it's oxidized, it leads to atherosclerosis, which we know is the step towards heart disease. And it's been shown that these polyphenols prevent oxidative damage to your DNA. So you have two dimensions of the impact of preventing oxidative processes coming through this, consumption of this product. And I'll show on purpose, I had the LDL oxidation as the first bullet here, because that's the European Food Safety Authority health claim, because of this evidence that's been shown that it reduces LDL oxidation. And here's the claim. So through evidence that's been presented, to get a claim, it's not here's a study, here's a report. It's systematic review of all the evidence for the European Food Safety Authority to come out and say, olive oil polyphenols contribute to the protection of your blood lipids from oxidative stress, i.e. they prevent their oxidation, which we know if they're oxidized, it leads to sort of heart disease if you don't take care of it. So, and again, the claim is that olive oil has to have at least 5 milligrams of hydroxytyrosol, that phenol we talked about before, and any of these derivatives. And you can see there the oleuropein complex and tyrosol per 20 grams of olive oil. So if you think about that, that's like 2 tablespoons. You have 2 tablespoons of olive oil, it has to have at least 5, and that's how you get the health claim. Similarly, the FDA provided a qualified health claim for the monounsaturated fatty acids and said that the statement was a little more reserved than the European Food Safety Authority, but said that limited and not conclusive evidence suggests that eating 2 tablespoons or 23 grams reduces your risk of coronary heart disease because of these monounsaturated fatty acids. So again, there's 2 authorities here putting out a statement that this thing that you're consuming and whatever it has in it, and here's what it has in it to help you prevent some of the early the onset of cardiovascular disease. Oh, I skipped on too much. Okay, so again, sorry, I'm hitting it too fast. Okay, so we know that as we grow older, our HDL goes down, and HDL is the good cholesterol, the high density lipoprotein, and we know, how does that go up? Well, it's been shown that consumption of red wine, for example, helps with that. But it's been shown definitively that olive oil consumption helps with maintain that HDL and prevents it from going down. If you follow people who are the same age, those who consume olive oil, their reduction in the HDL is much slower than those who do not consume it. And not only that, some studies have shown that it increases the HDL and reduces your LDL, because now you have a product that, one, prevents oxidation and the oxidation of your LDL, but also it reduces how much there is, and it increases your HDL. And there's a few studies that show this linear increase. If you increase the phenolic content, what Nicolas was mentioning before, on average, and we just finished a study, actually a quality study with an organization in the US. We randomly tested 200 samples plus across the country, and the average that we found, again, this is a select sample that we had. We were about close to 300 milligrams per kilogram. That was the average, looking at extra virgin oil and virgin olive oil. The high phenolic that we're talking about, and Nicolas mentioned, 1,500, 2,000. Obviously, linear increase in HDL as you increase the phenolic content is a good thing, because you want that HDL to go as high as it could, and it reduces your LDL if you have an olive oil of that nature. So benefit on both fronts: reduce your LDL, increase your HDL. Again, evidence on blood pressure. It's been shown that it reduces your blood pressure, and actually, not only that, it's been shown in a couple of studies that it reduced the need for medication, because your blood pressure can be at some level, but then the next step is you need medication to control it. Now you have something that reduces the blood pressure, and people were able to get off to some degree of their medication. I highlight a study there compared to sunflower. So you compare people who use in their diet sunflower oil, and then they compared with people who took 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil for 6 months. After 6 months, you saw a clinically significant decrease in your systolic and diastolic blood pressure. You have a natural product that can do that. That's pretty amazing, I think. And actually, we just finished a study in Cyprus, where a small randomized trial, well, decent, 100 and something participants with metabolic syndrome, and we showed one of the outcomes was blood pressure, systolic and diastolic, significant reduction statistically and clinically. So, and we're working on publishing that paper now. But again, and that supplementation was 3 months. Imagine if you take this as part of your daily routine. Now you can see the benefit downstream. The other thing that's been shown, which I think makes sense, you have anti-inflammatory capacity, anti-oxidative capacity. It will help your blood vessel function better. It makes it smooth, allows blood to flow, reduces the risk of clots, because that's the whole thing. You have inflammation, clots forming, and therefore heart attacks, strokes are prevented through preventing this blood clotting. Again, another benefit of olive oil. Here, I don't know if you can see it, but I just put 2 very big studies that came out the last 7 years. The one on the left of the slide is a study both out of Spain. The first one, they compared people. It was a big randomized trial. A third of the people were randomized to continue doing what you're doing in terms of diet. Then they had people in the Mediterranean diet, which obviously we know the pillar of that in terms of fats is olive oil. And then they had Mediterranean diet plus nuts. The 2 groups that had Mediterranean diet and the Mediterranean diet extra virgin, if you see the line, on both, the top, what's figure A, it's the having an MI, like the sort of what describes a cardiovascular episode, MIs, strokes, or death. The bottom one is total mortality from any cause, and you can see from what you're looking here is the curve that's the lowest means it's the had the best outcomes, and you can see in both. In the bottom one, Mediterranean diet and extra virgin olive oil did the best over a 5-year period. It was almost a 25% reduction in the risk of dying overall, any cause, but also the specific coronary heart disease related deaths in both conditions. The one on the right, so we're talking here about primary prevention, right? You're consuming something to prevent it from happening for the first episode. The one on the right is a study that was done 4 years ago, again, out of a group of Spain. These are people who already had a cardiovascular episode, an MI, a stroke. They had a study where, let's see if we continue giving them, if we randomize people to keep eating what you're eating or supplement with extra virgin olive oil. And you can see the red line is what those consuming extra virgin olive oil did. So the Mediterranean diet, again, had a 25 to 30% reduction, even in people who already had an episode prior. So now we're talking about secondary prevention, not only primary prevention, but secondary prevention in people who already had an episode of cardiovascular event. So,
Tassos,
yeah.
Quick question. That's with 2 tablespoons of regular
So they said, the Mediterranean model, if you will, it's you consume 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil a day. This is a
extra virgin olive oil.
extrovert, yeah. So this is sort of a controlled environment. It's a randomized trial, and you can monitor what people are taking. So, you know, and you know how much they're taking. So the evidence is there. Yes, you know, somebody might take one, somebody might take five. So outside of the study, but this was a controlled environment. They were capturing all this information to make sure that if you consume this, this is what happens.
That's awesome.
Now let's switch gears to cancer. Again, we know that one of the risk factors, what happens, you have these free radicals moving around, but you have a product, olive oil, that has antioxidative capacity, basically cleaning out all these free radicals that might actually increase your risk of a cell going crazy, and putting it simply there, and starting sort of a cancer line. And it's been shown, I think I mentioned it before, Leocanthal selectively induces cancer cell death. So what it does, in the study was done in both breast cancer cells and prostate cancer cells, it selectively goes and kills those cancer cells in culture. So now translate that, move that into the sort of an animal model or humans, you can see the impact that this could have. Squalene, we talked about tumor inhibitor. It's used now a lot in cosmetic products and creams and sunscreens and all that, because it's been shown that it has UV protection. So there's another benefit from this. And Oleaphen, it's been shown in lab tests that it inhibits that invasion of cancer cells in healthy cells, and helps regression of tumors. So again, a lot of these have to move into sort of big studies to show that, but then you have small studies in animal models that are showing a lot of evidence that this is another benefit that you can get from olive oil. Now, in big studies that were done, if you look at people residing in Mediterranean, countries that we know are consuming a lot of olive oil through their food, they have a fairly low risk of cancer. At least the ones that could be impacted by what's in the olive oil, because again, high in antioxidants reduces the oxidative damage to the DNA we said before, and so this presence of free radicals, if you can remove them, which is considered a possible cause of cancer, it's sort of the starter of that process. Now you have something that will help you minimize that risk. And then the oleic acid, which is, like we said, 70% of the extra virgin olive oil is monounsaturated fatty acid, is oleic acid. It's highly resistant to oxidation. And obviously, it's not just on the cells, but also it might have beneficial effects on the genes that are linked to cancer. So it sort of goes beyond just what cells you have in your body. It might have an impact in the pathway from your genes that have been linked, and there's evidence certain genes are linked to develop the risk of developing cancer. Now you have something that can impact even at that level. So pretty impactful, product here. Again, lots of studies to show that this idea of using a natural product with its multidimensional chemical composition can have impact on disease like cancer. Okay, a little bit on brain health, which I said, I remember one of our conferences that we host every year, we had a panel on health, and a couple of cardiologists, the ones I showed before, 2 studies, they presented their findings to sort of promote use olive oil. And then this researcher out of Temple University outside Philadelphia, he stands up and says, well, it's great that you cardiologists can keep me alive for my heart, at least 80, 90 years old, but if my brain is not there, what good is it? So a lot of work has started to happen that there's positive impact on cognitive and neurological health. So one of the early studies happened, a researcher at Columbia, he looked at mice that had these plaques that are, you can simulate Alzheimer's in a mouse model, right? So he showed that using olive oil that he was feeding these mice, not only the plaques were arrested, meaning they stopped growing, they cleared. So he said, okay, this is very interesting. What do we do? Let's bring it to the human population and see how does that happen. We, with some collaborators down at Auburn University and in Temple, the person I was referring to, we did a study in patients with Alzheimer's. We gave them supplementation of extra virgin high phenolic olive oil for 6 months. And we saw both through blood tests, but also imaging, that a lot of their markers of Alzheimer's that people are following, patients who have Alzheimer's, either stayed flat, they did not get worse, or improved over a 6-month supplementation with high phenolic olive oil. Then we said, okay, how about we go a step upstream? How about we look at individuals who themselves do not have Alzheimer's, but they have people in their families that have Alzheimer's? And think of it as a prevention now, because if your risk of developing Alzheimer's is higher if you have somebody in your family, because it's genetically, there's a strong association there. So we're in the process of almost done with the study now, supplementation of those individuals to see if the markers that give you sort of an indication whether you're at risk of developing it, if those markers go down, now we'll have something to say about preventing it in the first place. So a lot of interesting work happening in this area in brain health. And this is another big study that was done. It came out, I think, a couple of years ago, where individuals who consumed, they looked at, they had this big cohort of people, and they asked them, what are you consuming? We're talking about, I think the sample size here was like the thousands. So they captured what they were consuming, and they found that those who consumed just a half a teaspoon of olive oil a day, their risk of dementia-related death, when people pass, try to attribute to a cause. So almost 30% reduction of the risk of dementia-related death compared to those who rarely or never consumed olive oil. I don't remember the last time any pill had that impact on any disease. That's almost a third reduction of your risk of dying of dementia-related death. That's huge. And this is, again, examples of studies related to Alzheimer's. The study that came out in Nutrients that I was referring to before, and that showed that, because one of the things in Alzheimer's is this connectivity between the blood and brain barrier. That permeability is an indicator of Alzheimer's or cognitive impairment. So these biophenols,
Have we lost Tassos?
sorry, you lost me there. Sorry, something happened to can you hear me back?
We've got you back, Tassos. Thank you.
Sorry. So maybe if you don't mind, until I gain control of the mouse, can somebody go to the next slide? Great.
Is that where you need to be on the diabetes slide? Tassos? Oh dear, looks like we're having some problems. Sorry, folks, bear with us. We'll just give him a couple of minutes to see if he can reconnect here.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we've got you back now.
Okay, great. So I'm trying to click on the so I can get control. Great. Okay, thanks for moving it. So diabetes, a lot of work actually in here in type 2 diabetes especially. and how to help with glycemic control. And we know that diabetes is linked to other diseases, cardiovascular disease, and it's been shown through several studies that, again, just as little as 2 tablespoons a day, which is not that hard to consume 2 tablespoons. You put it in your salad, there's the 2 tablespoons. Compared with, let's say, sunflower, in 2 weeks, significant decrease in fasting glucose and insulin. Another study looking at enriching your diet with olive oil versus vegetable oils for 8 weeks, improved insulin sensitivity, which we know, which means your insulin is working better, therefore it keeps your glucose in check. The interesting thing, which goes back to the myth of you cannot fry with olive oil because of whatever reason, actually somebody studied this and said, if you look at eggplant fried in olive oil, it helped not only, well, in my opinion, it makes your food taste better, but actually led to lower blood glucose and insulin compared to people just adding it on top. So there's the busting the myth through science that I cannot fry with olive oil. So next slide, please.
Has Tassos frozen again? Looks like he has. Nick, are you hearing Tassos?
Sorry. Maybe I'll turn my camera because I think I'm having bandwidth issues.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, if you turn that off, that might just help you.
Yes, there. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. All right. So let me just enlarge my screen here. Great. So endocrine metabolic, which is related to diabetes and all that. The early evidence was from some cross-sectional studies. They looked at what people are eating and they were asking them questions every one time. And then they said, okay, is there an association between what they're consuming and their metabolic health? Metabolic health, anything that has to do with, which part of the syndrome, part of the metabolic syndrome is weight gain and disruption in your endocrine system. And currently, there's a lot of work happening in that because obviously we know a lot of these are also related to other diseases, cardiovascular disease, definitely, and your ability to control your levels of blood sugar. And we just finished actually a study here in patients with metabolic syndrome, and we looked at some clinical outcomes, and one of them was fasting blood sugar, and significant drop in only 3 months of supplementation with high phenolic olive oil that had mostly oleocanthal. So again, a lot of work in that. Now we're thinking of what next? What other study can we do in this? And look at different outcomes related to this. Next slide, please. So, and this is another study that came out actually from the other school, i.e. Harvard. No, I'm just kidding, because we do a lot of work with folks at Harvard on this kind of thing and partnering with them to keep producing evidence. So there was a huge study, 120,000 participants, huge study over many, many years. And they showed that, because one of the things people say, well, it's a very dense, calorically dense food, right? When we know that it's a fat, monounsaturated, which is good, but it's a lot of calories. So they looked at people at different levels of BMI, and in every single band of BMI, the people who consumed olive oil, that's the green bar, going negative. So they lost and maintained that weight loss compared to other oils. And you can see olive oil is the green, vegetable oils are the dark green, and then you have butter and margarine. So over a long period of time, these people who kept using olive oil not only lost but maintained the loss of their weight loss long term compared to people in the same BMI band. So again, yes, it's calorically dense, but at the same time, if you consume olive oil, those of you who consume it, you probably feel a little bit fuller earlier than if you consume another oil. And that it's been shown that it helps, that satiety that you get from consuming olive oil, because it's calorically dense, and you don't use that much, just 2 tablespoons, then you do. It's much better to do, to control your weight. Next slide, please. So, and this is the study I was mentioning before. It was presented last week actually at the World Olive Oil Congress in Athens. We started to write the paper to publish it. We showed that the 2 main outcomes that we looked was fasting blood glucose and hemoglobin A1C, another marker for insulin resistance and diabetes, and showed both of them clinically and statistically significant drops over a 3-month supplementation with this high phenolic, high oleochemical olive oil. Next slide, please. So in summary, we know that this is the cornerstone of Mediterranean diet, and over, I would say, 60 or more years, it's been shown that this product is good for your health. Lots of publications again, but that come with these claims of health, which I'm pretty sure there's going to be more as we discover more on the health benefits of olive oil. Next slide, please. Again, I'm going to go back to what Nicolas was saying, and I swear we did not plan this to talk about the similar things, sort of a good segue to what I was going to say, but the gut microbiome is the next frontier, I think, because it's linked to every immune function you can think of. And if we think of something that has an impact on your gut microbiome, that will immediately have positive impact on your health in general. And we know that olive oil has positive changes in your gut flora. We know that it has bactericidal effects. So if you have something, a foodborne pathogen, for example, it might help clean that out from your microbiome. And we know that it has this capacity to this effect that it has, and probably mediated through the activity through your microbiome. And one of the things that one of the projects we're starting later this fall with Nicolas and others here is to look at that in a different population, but also how can we measure the effect of supplementing with what Nicolas showed before in terms of some activity, inflammation, whatever it is. But a lot of this, because it's consumed, it goes to your gut. So if your microbiome is healthy, obviously the impact you're going to see is much better. Not just because of the olive oil consumption, but the olive oil will help you get there. So a couple of studies starting this fall on this. Next slide, please. I think what I alluded before, we know a lot about the phenols that are already identified. I'm sure there's some other, whether it's new phenols or other compounds that we have, or the proportions, interactions between them, the synergy. Is it at the cell level? Is it at the genome level? Is there some interaction between phenols and something else in the olive oil? I think that's yet to be discovered. I'm pretty sure we're going to see new health claims. We have one from EFSA and sort of an indication from the FDA. I'm sure we're going to see more. The interesting thing that is becoming now a lot of people focusing is metabolomics. How does olive oil factor into the impact and the effect that it has on metabolomics? And obviously artificial intelligence, we have tons of data now. And there's actually one of my colleagues at the School of Public Health at Yale, with folks from the UK and a couple of other groups in the US, they looked at the bioactivity of these phenols using AI on different diseases. And it's amazing how these are, and you see this network of bio.
Looks like we lost.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back.
Okay, well done.
I apologize. I'm in a really, never mind. Next slide. I think we're almost done. So, and this is just a conclusion slide. And then I want to switch a little bit on the planetary health, because I think that's important to mention that as well. So we'll go to the next slide. And I think Nicolas alluded to this as well. There's a study that was done by International Olive Council, which is the body that sort of governs, it's an intergovernmental agency that sort of sets standards and does a lot of work with in the olive oil sector. And they showed, and you can click on the link there. Actually, I looked at it the other day, still there. Hectare of olive trees cancels out one person's annual carbon footprint. And if you sort of look at the per liter of olive oil produced, it absorbs almost 11 kilograms of atmospheric carbon dioxide, puts it in the soil. So that's immense. So imagine an area that has thousands and thousands of trees, how much carbon dioxide is absorbed into the soil. So that's one, and this has been documented, captured, it's published, and a lot of other related things. Next slide, please. This is an interesting study. A few years ago, a group out of the University of Bari, they said, okay, let's take a huge mill that works with a lot of olive groves in the area in this part of Bari, and that processes 50 tons of olives per day. That's a lot of olives. They showed that they retrofitted it with, have all this biomass coming out of the production of olive oil. What do you do with it? So they put this, they retrofitted with this part that it would generate heat and electricity. And they showed that every day that they process 50 tons of olives, they can provide power to 1,400 homes and heat to 800 houses. So think of the season of olive harvest. Let's say it's 2 or 3 months. Let's say it's 3 months. So for 3 months of the year, this mill, if it processes 50 tons of olives, can produce power for 1,400 homes and heat for 800 houses for every day for that 3-month window. So for a quarter of the year, these homes are relying on the biomass, the energy generated from the biomass from this mill. It's expensive investment up front, but think of the cost savings downstream. Next slide. Another recent study in the other University of Florence actually showed that in urban settings, the olive tree is one of the top 3 trees that can absorb particulate matter. So now we have a tree that's good for the environment. It absorbs and keeps particulate matter and captures it in an urban setting like Florence. So no wonder when I'm in Nicosia downtown and I see pavements and asphalt and not olive trees, I get really upset. Next slide. A couple of things what we do at university besides a lot of this work we do. Obviously, we try to incorporate into the food and the culture of our dining services and educating our students, because for those of you who don't know it, the consumption of olive oil in the United States is at a mere 1 liter per person per year, as opposed to 10, 15, 20 in some parts of the Mediterranean. Next slide, please. So as part of that, the activity, and that's how I met Nicolas, is through activities that we do. Next slide. To set up a center, an entity, an institute, whatever we're going to call it, focusing on the olive oil. We do an annual symposium on olive oil and health. We try to move around. We were in Italy, Spain, Greece. We're coming back to the United States this year. And we bring people who are working the current research that they do, what they do, what they want to do next, and try to help that process and bring people together, hopefully setting up an entity that will facilitate it even more and bring resources to do a lot of this work. Next slide, please. These are the next few slides are examples of the proceedings of this, because we write at the end proceedings. Next slide. And these slides, I believe, might be available. So I'm not going to spend time. Next slide. Just wanted to show you a few things that we do with our students, tying in this idea of food. Next slide. Next slide.
Are you there, Tassos?
He might have lost his connection again.
We've lost his connection again.
Yeah.
Tassos?
Okay, well, we had a question in the chat just a few moments ago from Sam. This is a question for you, Nick. Are the pods that the olive oil comes in, are they edible? I know they're made from seaweed.
Here they are. Yes, it's edible. It's tested also for pollutant and everything. It has 0 calorie. You can chew on it. It's quite hard to chew, but it will melt in water. So if you put it in your blender for a smoothie or in your coffee, it will melt. The way I take it every morning is I bite on it. And that's it. And this is like a fruit peel. So you can add it to your compost. You can feed your worms, or you can just, it's quite strong. Or that's the oleocanthal talking, right?
That's the only acanthal, right? That's that.
Yeah.
Feeling on the
And
back.
I see olives for hair. Olives are really good, but they don't have oleocanthal. Oleocanthal does not exist in the plant. It's transformed during the malaxation. That's what is very tricky. And just to waiting for Tassos to come back, there's many other polyphenols that maybe have not been discovered, and many other polyphenols that we can also not create but transform during the malaxation. So this is the next frontier I'm working on as well. It's that enzymatic activity during the malaxation. So we know how oleocanthal is transformed. We work this out. But now we are looking into creating other types of polyphenol, and that will, maybe lead to another discovery. But oleocanthal is truly, truly amazing. So yeah, the pods are edible. They're quite hard to chew, but they will melt in water.
Cool. And malaxation, for people like me who don't know what that means.
All right. So as I explained a little bit before, the olives are crushed and then they go into a chamber. And that chamber can be, in a normal olive mill, it's open, there's oxygen, right? And then you have these big blades that turn and turn and turn and turn that paste in order to separate the oil from the rest of the pulp. And then once this happens, so typically in an olive mill, they'll do it for 30 to 40 minutes, sometimes more. But then you have oxidation at that moment. We do it very differently. That's the thing I don't share. But during this malaxation, some phenol, oleaphen and others are transformed into oleocanthal, not directly, oleocoronal and then oleocanthal. And then that paste goes through a centrifugal system that separates the oil from the pulp. The pulp is a waste, but obviously it's also a resource. And as we learn on the terrain when you do permaculture, the problem is the solution. In the mill that we have another separator after the extraction that separates the little bit of wood from the pip to the rest of the pulp. The wood goes directly as fuel, as biomass, and the pulp goes into methanization to create gas, compost, and then gas, and the gas is used to create energy.
Wow. So
So there's
you get oil, you get biomass that can be used as a fuel to create heat, and
biochar as well. There's a company that does biochar, and I'm on a call with the University of Jaén in Spain, where we are studying biochar making from it, not only for the soil, but also to capture atmospheric water. So still tons of research. But to come back to the health benefits, Tassos was mentioning, we're doing 2 studies. One in autumn on the microbiome here in the University of Nicosia, and then we have another one with athletes, football players, professional football players, because we have a lot of football players, especially in the Premier League, that are taking our English Premier League, that are taking our oil. So we're doing this to measure the effects on recovery.
So
Sorry, Nick, I see a question in the chat about cod liver oil. I want to address that.
I was just about to ask that. When you were taking Nicholas, when you were taking your bit of oil there, it reminded me of my mother putting some cod liver oil on a spoon and force feeding me cod liver oil every morning. And Catherine said, and a great question, do you know the difference between, or does it compare cod liver oil or olive oil and the anti-inflammatory effects of each? I mean, are they comparable, sorry, or are they totally different?
So the
Well,
sorry, the
that's a question for Tassos.
yeah.
Okay, thanks, Tassos. Great that you're back with us.
Yes. Sorry, all of a sudden my internet started acting up. So if we look at cod liver, the concentration or the amount of it has monounsaturated fatty acids, the good fatty acids, the MUFAs, probably on average about 50 to 55% compared to 75 to 80% of oleic acid that we have in olive oil. So it has the monounsaturated fatty acids. I don't know of any head-to-head comparisons with cod liver oil, but it does have the similar anti-inflammatory capacity. Now, the difference in the amount, the proportion of in cod liver versus olive oil of the MUFAs, I would suspect that more activity in the olive oil because of that, and also the different phenols that we see in olive oil we don't see in cod liver. So the bioactivity of some of these polyphenols that we see in olive oil are not there in cod liver oil, simply because those polyphenols don't exist in that cod liver oil.
Okay, great. Thank you. And it's nice to hear, Nicolas, that the Premier League in Cyprus are using your oils, and probably all over the world. It's nice. I can't wait for us professional farmers to be using it as well. And our recovery time after a long period of workshops or harvests will recover as well. So looking forward to trialing that. Tassos, did you finish your presentation? I feel we had a few more slides to go.
There's a few slides again, and I see a couple of notes or questions in the chat about seed oils and all that. I think the important thing there is that unlike olive oil, to extract oil from seeds, you have to apply a lot of heat. So you're already degrading whatever is there. And I think you lose whatever's there, you lose it because it's a lot of heat and pressure you have to apply on seeds to generate oil. So that to me is the main. I cannot speak on what is there in the seed oils, but I know in comparison, in terms of the health benefits, obviously olive oil has more than the seed oil. I mean, the next few slides to show what we do, we try to bring science, producers, people who work in the dining world, in the food industry, and we have events like Reviving Ancient Cuisines, and we blend the story of
As soon as we get to your presentation, Tassos, we seem to be losing you again. I do apologize. I think we ought to stick to the questions. I don't know how many slides you had left.
I think you're right, Nick. Why don't we skip to the Q&A session? If you just keep fast forwarding through, Tassos' slides will come up to the questions that our audience has been posting in the chat for us and patiently waiting to get answers to. Oh, here's one from me. Nick, I've asked you this question before, and I just wanted to ask in front of the audience. And there's a bit of a silly question. I think I know the answer now. But yeah, why can't somebody just buy, instead of signing up for the Oleaphen subscription and getting those capsules, a daily dose, why couldn't somebody just buy a bottle of olive oil and drink more of it?
All right. First of all, we need to know what kind of polyphenol we're talking about, right? So we look at oleocanthal, which is quite hard to find. And then if you buy a supermarket olive oil, you will need to consume 30 times more. So that's to get the same effect. So you're gonna need a lot of olive oil. And if you find a good one that still is in the the health claim of the EU, which is 250 milligrams. So that's a really good quality. That's going to be an expensive oil. You're going to need to consume 6 times more. What we always say is that you should be consuming olive oil, right? It should be your primary oil. And I just want to quick back on the seed oil. Not only we use heat in seed oil, but we use adjuvant, we use solvent, sorry, and in a form of hexane. And there was a study that came up in France where they studied all the seed oil on the market, and most of them had hexane levels that were way above the safety levels. So you should definitely use regular olive oil for your everyday thing. But if you want the real strong health benefit, if you want to combat anti-inflammatory and stuff, it's best to take, the high stuff. And according to what you're trying to achieve, according to what is the health goal that you have, there's different ways to take it. We have all the information on our website. So we say generally first thing in the morning, but not be the case for you. I mean, if you're looking at blood sugar regulation, that's going to be before meal. So we have actually made a small calculator on our website where when you should take your olive oil according to your health goal. So it's a very different product. But what's amazed me is that we have a product with thousands and thousands of studies. It's not hundreds. If you go to PubMed today, which is the National Library of Medicine, and you just type olive polyphenol, see what happens. And it comes all the time. We didn't mention the studies on leukemia that came up very recently. It's an ongoing thing. And yet the trend today is to drink methylene blue, right? Or lion's mane or mushrooms, and all those have very, very little science behind it. So we have a food who's truly is a medicine, who's carbon negative. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
And it's
And it's
been
good
used
for
for
you.
thousands of years, unlike methylene blue.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a tradition, and here, here, look, here in Cyprus of doing anguroleo, which is the early harvest olive oil, the one, which has the most polyphenol, and keeping it at home when the kid's sick, when you have issues, you drink that one. And yeah. So yeah, you should consume olive oil all the time as your primary fat for sure. And then take a shot of really high stuff for the effects, especially on in anti-inflammation. That's the number one thing that Oleaphen really differentiate, right? Is the high level of oleo content. This time is 100 times the average of olive oil. And inflammation is the root cause of so many diseases.
And
Brilliant.
and Nicolas, can I just add
Yep.
something on that in terms of what Luke was saying about just drinking a lot more normal oil, and can you get the same benefits? Is there a limit to, if I wanted to be really healthy, could I have 2 shots? Could I have 3 shots a day? Is there like an upper limit to this?
Well, we are the literature suggests there's no side effect and there's no limit. And when it comes to oleocantal, the really potent thing, there's a group. The study was mentioned before. One of the study was mentioned before in Tassos, saying that they're working on Alzheimer. I think it's Louisiana University. I'm not quite sure, but they are the most advanced on oleocantal and Alzheimer. And one of the symposium we did that Yale organized, I met with this lady years ago, and she told me that they found a lethal dose of oleocantal, and it was in the tens of thousands of milligrams in one go. So we did the calculation, and it was like drinking 50 liters of our oil, right, in one go. And they killed the mice with that level. But you can't, if you take so much oil, I mean, you can't do it. So far, we don't have any side effects. We don't have maximum dosage. So it's very, very safe. And I can tell you from experience, because when I meal, I take a shot of oil to try it, right? Within half an hour. And I consume a lot, right? What it does to me when I meal is what Red Bull or non-authorized or illegal excitant does to you.
Yeah.
It really, really, this is what it does to me. And during mealing season, I barely can't sleep. It's very, very hard. Yeah, but I consume a lot. Every shot for half an hour, 8 hours a day. That's a lot of it. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we have also tons of testimonies from the people are taking it. Luke has been taking it for years. We know each other for a while now. We have tons of testimonies. Yeah, we had someone that would not take anti-inflammatories because anti-inflammatories they destroy your stomach and your gut. Ibuprofen also raises your risk of heart disease by a crazy amount. And we had a person that had knee problem and could not take anti-inflammatory anymore because of those issues, and went through knee surgery and used only the oil as an anti-inflammatory and did well. It really is impressive when you start that level of anti-inflammatory over time. It's very, very impressive what it does to your body.
And when do you think you'll start seeing the health benefits for people who are using your oils? When do you see it? After 2 or 3 capsules? After 2 weeks? 3 weeks?
From experience, we say about 3 weeks. It really depends on what the issue is, right? If someone has an issue to start with, so if someone has an issue, usually it happens a little bit earlier. But if you're healthy and you're just looking for maintenance and prevention, you will notice, especially when it comes to brain fog and tiredness and energy levels, sugar regulation, inflammation in general, and the gut. If you have gut issues, it's very impressive. And that's what Tassos was saying. This is the new frontier. And that's what we're going to be studying in clinical trials soon. Yeah, if you have gut issue, you'll see a big difference. Yeah.
Brilliant. So moving on to another question. Are olive trees grafted onto common rootstocks, and/or are results for healthy vary by the cultivar?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. It's very true. Every cultivar has a different phenolic profile. To start with, in the fruit and in the leaves. Most of the olive trees, when done professionally, are grafted on a wide rootstock, but that doesn't change the genetic of the tree, right? It just makes them more resilient. So the trees we're planting are always grafted on a rootstock. You can also clone it. You can do some cuttings and start with the same genetic. But at the end of the day, every cultivar has a different phenolic profile. We work with a cultivar. We work with 2 cultivars actually that are from Greek origin that are known to have the highest polyphenols. One is Calamon, which is usually used for table olives, the Kalamata olives. And the other one is Koroneki, which is very small olive from Crete, very productive and used worldwide for olive cultivation. But those are the number 1 and number 2 in polyphenol content. Then you have other cultivars from Spain with Picual, Oratina from the south of Italy that are also high. There's some really good cultivars in Tunisia as well. But Calamon is number 1, has shown, this is what we're using. So it starts with the genetic, then the cultivation, then the extraction. And then, of course, how you deliver it, to keep those constant.
Thank you, Nicolas. And then
I'll just say, Tassos, if you're still here, feel free to chime in at any time.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I saw a question there about cooking and polyphenols. Obviously, when you cook with olive oil and you fry, let's say, you're going to degrade polyphenols. But if you start with a high phenolic content olive oil, you still, even if you do that, you still go down to levels that are still at that health benefit level. And to Nick's point about the gut and all that, I think we still have a lot to discover, but the evidence is there that
We lost him again.
Poor connection. Poor
Can I just
connection.
say something regarding Nick? You said earlier, you mentioned that I've been using it for years. I've actually noticed that it can also be used topically, and I know you don't make any claims about that on your website because there hasn't been the clinical trials. But I've actually every year when post-harvest I go to the distribution center in Nicosia and I buy a case of about 15 to 20 bottles. And even though it's in the bottles and not in the capsules, I've seen great health benefits myself, and I share those with friends and family who've got like bad knees is one. I remember a cousin of mine had a really bad knee, and he was applying the olive oil topically for about 3 or 4 weeks. He came back and saw me, and the inflammation, the pain was gone, and that's happened several times with a number of people. So I think if it can work externally, and you guys have obviously got a lot of evidence that it works internally, this stuff is just phenomenal.
So what do you think about that, Nicholas? Is that something you've heard? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, not only I heard it, but okay, we have some people are taking it for psoriasis as well and eczema. But to come back to topical, we approach at some point some cosmetic companies, very, very big names, biggest names you can imagine, French, uh, and they were very, very, very excited about it. And we realized we worked towards it for a very long time. And then we realized that they will cosmetics, sorry to say that, it's a major scam. They will have used less than 1% of the oil in the formulation. In cosmetics, the most expensive serum you can think of, that $200 tiny bottle, you put a few drops in it, the maximum they will spend in ingredients is 15 euros per liter. So
A liter.
a liter, yeah. So they wanted to use because they did try internally, because such a big company and they have a lot of resources to try things out, and they did try it, and they've seen effects on how do you call it, the skin wrinkles, the wrinkles, and they were very excited about it. And what happened is that they will have published that study, put a patent on the use, which they did. You can't patent the thing, but you can patent the use, and then use 1%, less than 1% in it. Then also take our stories with regenerative farming and all that stuff, and sell it to you for $200. So we stopped negotiation, we stopped everything. We said, okay, I'm not gonna swear, but we said, yeah, let's not do that, and let's keep the product pure and deliver as it is.
Wow. Wow, incredible. And it's
So there
nice
is
to
some
see.
evidence. It's not published.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, yeah.
obviously Luke uses it on his face because he hasn't got the wrinkles I've got on mine, laugh lines or whatever. So well done, Luke. I will use that when I get mine as well.
I recommend it, mate. I recommend it.
Um, is there a specific brand or region that has the highest proven levels?
Yeah, well, first of all, we need to look at how we measure them, right? Uh, we need to look at brands that are using accredited method of analysis, mainly HPLC or LC-MS, right? There was a lot of claim. I have the world record, I think 2019, where I reached 4,947 milligrams per liter. When I first pressed oil, I doubled the world record that was existing at the time without trying. It was a byproduct of our farming, right? We were not looking into making olive oil or polyphenol. It was not the goal. At that time, it was 900 milligrams of oil contact. We reached 2,000 milligrams on the first try without trying, really. And
You did
then
that by accident, just by
by
using
accident, yeah. And then
regenerative.
obviously I got into it. And then because I love biology and I love biological reaction, enzymatic things, and I got into it. So I personally hold a red record for another company I was working at the time, and since then it hasn't been touched. So if you're looking at polyphenol, look for the right analysis. Last year we did 1,600 and something. We are hoping to do much more this year. We actually did an oil with 2,700 with LCMS on an experiment I was doing. This one we kept, and this year I'm gonna use that experiment to do this. But we keep improving. We still have investment to do in meals and stuff. But there is some oil that claim crazy amount of numbers, but they use non-accredited methods that are known to inflate. So this is basically regulatory fraud, because if you use the health claim and you use a non-accredited method, then it's fraud. So accredited method, we are, I believe, one of the highest in the world. I'm not quite sure who gets our numbers with the right method of analysis. And also the very big difference is that we're gonna keep those phenols fresh. That's the big difference. The monodose and the cold chain. That's the big thing, because you can get a good number when you start, but when it reaches your home, it's half. What's the point?
And going back to what you said earlier in your presentation, if you're buying this stuff, extra virgin olive oil in a bottle,
Yeah,
when you open the bottle, you allow air in, it starts to
Yeah.
oxidate, and you start losing those phenols.
Yeah.
And just for the shelf life, being in a bottle at room temperature, you're also losing polyphenols, which is why you have them sealed in a seaweed-made pod and
Yeah.
with the temperature throughout the delivery chain, right?
Yeah. If you want to buy quality olive oil for your daily culinary use and stuff, you can freeze it. You can put it in the fridge. The only thing is that it's going to be tough on a daily basis because it will solidify in the fridge. So it's going to be hard to use. But many people, they use ice cube trays, right? So you can use your olive oil as well. So if you're lucky to know a producer and you buy quality olive oil early in the season after harvest, you can freeze it as well, and you'll keep it fresh. But if you buy it in a supermarket or even a fancy shop, first of all, I'm talking about regular extra virgin. Don't buy anything else than extra or virgin, and look at the labels carefully, right? Look at the origin, because if you find different countries of origin, that's not good. That's a blend, and sometimes they blend different years as well. And there's a lot of that, especially in the US. Here we're lucky, we know our producers, we can get our oil. But if you're in the US, it's a bit trickier.
And
So
the best olive, Nick, what's the best olive for polyphenols? Is there one?
the calamine, no one really makes olive oil with calamine because it's very unproductive. And they use it mostly for table olives. We do that because we're looking after we're after the phenols, right? Most extra virgin olive oil brand are not really after phenols. They're after a pleasant. It's a very different product, right? They're compatible, but they're very different. Our oil is extremely bitter. Right? It's not gonna go. It's not for everyone to be on the salad or stuff like that. It's not. It's a very strong oil. It burns. It burns your throat. So we see it as a food supplement. If you're like Tassos and you're really an aficionados, he drinks it. He will cook with it, and some chefs can cook with it. But for your everyday use, I recommend for the kitchen a good extra virgin olive oil, single origin country, with a harvest date, certificate of analysis available. Do a bit of research, and check out the labels properly.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nicolas.
Dark glass for sure.
And Isadora has a question.
It's not.
Yeah.
This is not from me. We got an excellent question here in our Q&A. I hope everyone is hearing me. We're wondering if you correlate your Brix levels with the olecanthal levels from the olive oil. You know, if you can, I don't know if you take measurements from the Brix from your trees.
We don't anymore. I was doing it at the beginning, but it's not really relevant in our case. Once again, oleocanthal is not in the fruit, so in the fruit we'll be measuring other things like oleaphen and some other compounds. So the Brix not really relevant for us. It's relevant in some cases for the health of the trees, and when we have issues on some trees and we want to see the evolution. I work a lot on disease remediation, and there's some really, really tricky one in olives, and we found ways to naturally stop. One is called verticillium wilt, which doesn't have a cure, but we managed to stop it and to actually revive trees that had a verticillium wilt. So in that case, we measure it to see the evolution of the tree. But for the olive oil production and the polyphenol, no, it's not very relevant.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nicolas. And then we have another question via YouTube. Are there olives grown commercially in the US?
I don't know if Tassos is still here.
No, he's gone.
All right. Yes, there is. Not enough for the production for the consumption, the local consumption, but there is in California. I was called to do some consulting for Texas and Florida. Florida, I don't know if you know, but lost a lot of the citrus production due to bacteria who is destroying citrus production all over the world. And they are looking into planting olives. And the good thing is they don't have olive fruit fly, which is the main pest in Florida. So they are planting. The main area is California. Other places are emerging. Maybe we'll see in the future. They don't have the best climate profile, but California has a really good climate profile. And with the sustained droughts over the last few years, many growers have taken almonds out and planted olives instead.
Okay.
So yeah, there is production. There is big production with big brands that do everything mechanized and with an average quality. And then you have also really good small scale producer doing quality. Yeah.
And are they trying to mimic your levels of oils, or they just
It's
looking?
a different game, and it's not an easy game.
Yeah.
What we do is hard. It's really hard and it's very expensive. It doesn't make much commercial sense. So if you're an American and you have thousands of hectares, you're not gonna play what I do on a tiny scale, right? Working with small scale farmers. No, they plant high density. So the rows of olive trees doesn't look like an olive grove. It looks more like a vineyard. So it's like hedges of olive trees. Also they do in Spain as well a lot. And then there's a big machine that comes on top and prune, harvest, and one person can do 1,000 hectares. Right. What we do here is very manual intensive. You can't do that in California. And I'm doing a design now for France. And the first thing the farmers told me there is like, we can't deal with manual labor. They just don't have it. So it's a very different approach.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, look, Nicolas, thank you very much indeed for your time. We're out of time. We have a minute to go. Where's that flown? And Tassos, I'm afraid he's gone, and we'd like to thank him. The school would like to thank him for his time this evening. I mean, Luke, it's been an incredible journey, this one, and I can't wait for webinar 2.
It has. It's been great, Nick. Thank you very much, and thank you, Isadora, and thanks to Tassos. Sorry, we didn't have a better connection. Thanks to everybody in the background today, and thanks to our audience. We hope to see you on the 5th of July for webinar 2, where Nicolas is going to be unpacking all of his secrets, no holds barred. He's going to tell us everything about his business, right, Nick? And we're all going to be able to copy you.
We're gonna show you how we can work with soil biology to survive a really, really hot and dry future and hopefully turn it around. Yeah.
Well, that will be interesting in its own right. And remember, guys, you can rewatch this on YouTube and any other social channels. And we all really look forward to seeing you on the 5th. And thank you for your continued support. Nicolas, again, thank you very much indeed for your time. And Tassos as well. It's been great. And Luke, I will look forward to seeing you next week, chap.
See you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.